At the moment of launch, you're quite prepared.
Lights off and you feel the rumble, and then you start to move, and that constant smooth acceleration pulling you back in the seat.
And you feel like you're just in a car wreck because the solid rocket boosters light off and they give you a kick in the backside like you were just rear-ended at a stop sign, literally.
There's just nothing subtle or nice about it.
There's the vibration, the pressure, the acceleration, the pressure in your seat.
I distinctly remember the point when I stopped and thought, I did it. I'm here. My goal was to be an astronaut, and now I'm in space.
As a kid, you maybe fantasize about spreading your arms and flying among the clouds and that kind of stuff. That's what we're doing. Floating is very cool.
It's fun to watch new astronauts show up in space too, because they creep around. We would joke like space mice, very timid, very controlled.
Being weightless the first few days is horrible. I mean, it's really neat to see something floating in front of you. It's really horrible to feel like you're going to throw up all the time. And then as you start to get into it, you start to realize that the human's an incredibly adaptive machine, and weightlessness is really, really well suited for us.
You know, pretty soon you're going into a hatchway and you come through and you kind of push off on both sides and you go zipping down the middle and you're turning right at the end. So you reach out, grab a handrail.
But it also brings out your inner 5-year-old, or I say that it is the source of all stupid astronaut tricks.
It's as fun as you think it would be, only better. I think I told my wife that I thought it was a burrito of awesomeness smothered in awesome sauce, because I don't have a very big vocabulary, so I tried to use the biggest, most impactful words I could.
Everybody's a superhero. You're not floating, you're flying.
So the International Space Station, being only 250 miles above Earth, we call it the kind of the proving ground for a lot of science. It is a national orbiting laboratory for the United States, and we do have hundreds of science experiments going on at any time.
We're doing this amazing science up there. It is also absolutely the most wonderful observatory. And certainly for an Earth-facing observatory, the cupola module, this big bay window, that we have facing Earth, is the place to be.
I got visited by 3 space shuttles. Several of the crew members never looked outside the cupola before. I would bring them one at a time to the cupola. Tell them to close their eyes, open up all the windows, the shutters on the windows, and then tell them to open up their eyes.
Cerebrally, I knew that this was going to be a life-changing experience. I knew that the view was going to be amazing.
And I will never forget that sight. The thin blue line of the atmosphere, the curve of the horizon, and that's when it became real. Really, at a gut level, I'm actually in space. We are on orbit. This is not a sim.
This is my eyes looking through glass at Earth from space. It was almost overwhelming.
And so I think it's kind of overload for your brain and processing all of that at once, because it just isn't used to that.
It's really hard to describe something like that, because it's not just cerebral, it's emotional, it's kind of all-encompassing. My heart was racing, you couldn't wipe the smile off of my face. It was really amazing.
I just was, feeling something as I was staring at this view of the whole thing, and it moved me to tears unknowingly. So.
In that instant, when you're overwhelmed with that vista, when your eyes see nothing but the beauty of the Earth, every single crew member that I brought in there for that exposure cried. It is heart-stopping. It is soul-pounding. It is breathtaking.
I mean, It was ridiculous. I'd never imagined in my entire life getting to see something that beautiful. It was so foreign for the human mind to look at that, to see the Earth highlighted that way.
Well, I don't think anything prepares you for how crystal clear it is. You know, I knew the colors, but they just seemed different to me. They seemed more vibrant, more translucent.
I've never seen those colors here on Earth. These pearlescent yellows and peaches that form when you're looking at a body of water with the sun angle. It's just amazing.
I just took a pencil and I drew like 15 curved lines, and I just wrote light blue, darker blue, pink, purple, dark purple, all the way down to the surface of the Earth at sunset, because the scale of looking at a sun refracting through the atmosphere, it blew me away, okay? And no picture captures that. There's no high enough dynamic range of a photo to capture what the human can see.
How in the world am I going to describe this? There's no words. There's no picture I could take to do it justice. There's no watercolors that I could put on paper to come close to the vividness, the ever-changing picture that I see staring at this planet.
And I think that's the challenge of really trying to express just what ran through my mind when I'd look out there, because my mind would just race.
It's like a work of art out the window there, and it surprises you every time you look at it. One of the most impressive things was watching thunderstorms, you know, storm activity moving around the planet.
You can see its path propagating around, and you have these big flashes all over the place.
You know, this one storm covering all the U.S. and lightning flashing off all over, nonstop.
It's like watching neurons firing in a brain. You know, these tentacles of light that are just connecting and traveling. Yeah, it might be starting over Florida, but it's like moving across the ocean to Africa as far as you can see. And that was, I mean, I remember floating there just thinking about, oh my gosh, everything is connected.
We got to see some interesting things up there. You know, one was Hurricane Dorian, a Category 5 hurricane with you know, such a well-formed eye. When you look down at it, flying over in the station, it doesn't even look like it's moving, but you know the power that's at the center of that storm, and what havoc that storm is wreaking on everybody on the ground.
You look at it in terror, really, because you know all the people that are endangered underneath, but just the immensity of power that Mother Nature brings.
A hurricane, a thunderstorm, everywhere you look, there is the environment doing something crazy. So we're coming up over Brazil, about to go across into the Atlantic Ocean, and looking out on the horizon, I saw looked kind of brown. I'd never seen that really from the space station, and I instantly, what did I think? Human interaction pollution, for sure. It's just awful looking, it's terrible. But as we went over the Atlantic, it kind of got thicker and thicker and thicker. It was a sandstorm in the Sahara Desert, blowing this huge plume of sand up into the atmosphere, crossing the Atlantic Ocean and coming down in Brazil. I mean, that is crazy. If that doesn't change the way you think about the planet, absolutely nothing will.
What struck me was when we looked at natural disasters, you see a flood, and you really can't pick out where they are on Earth. But when you see it from space, you realize that the effects of these natural disasters really hit everybody equally. And it really gives you this perspective that, you know, first of all, we're all in this together, and that the world is very small.
What has always struck me every time I went there is how beautiful the Earth is, how fragile it looks, how alive it obviously is with the clouds, the water. It's like it's breathing.
When you first look at Earth, you may say, wow, that's a continent. And then you look at it again the next day and you say, wow, there are mountain ranges. And then you look at it again the next day and it's like, oh, I could see synclines and anticlines in the geologic structure. You could see the Nile River and the Nile Delta so clearly, the Red Sea. And for me, that was just amazing to look down. You could see the Jordan River, the Sea of Galilee, the Dead Sea. And I was just thinking, this is where all this took place.
The color palette is hard to compare. I mean, all these reds and oranges, and so the dunes all over in Central Africa and in Saudi Arabia, you have these so many different textures.
And you can almost pick out where you are over the Earth because Australia's tans are different than African tans.
Every piece of the Earth has its own tone, if you want. So you become very acquainted with the Earth from a big picture point of view.
And you saw just the beauty of the landscape and the mountains and the deserts, and you start to think of how they were formed. You realize just how special the place we are is, and you feel that connection.